It's so like,
Yeah, it's the join or die.
oh, good eyes.
Yes, folks, it's Thursday. It's 2 p.m. I must be Fred McMurray, and I think this is... Okay.
Mama.
Yeah, it's been that type of day. So, it's always everyone's time for everyone's word on the street. Sorry, that wasn't coming out there.
Like, what is it time for? Hey, so we have a really good show today. So,
I hope so.
Well, I know it's been a tough week, but it's Thursday. That means it's Friday Eve.
Exactly. We have things to talk about and good guests. So how bad could it be, Fred?
Yeah, and especially,
Oh,
you know,
don't
when we talk
say
about word on
that.
the street.
Never say. Wait. Never, ever, ever say how bad it can be, because it will get worse.
We're going to have
where are we not streaming?
Fred's sunny disposition and optimism, I think.
Yeah. And which platform are we not streaming on when you say it could get worse? That's usually what happens.
We could be not streaming on any of them, but, you know.
Good.
And I think I just figured out the one we're not, but that's okay. We'll see what's going on.
Well, it says Facebook sounds good. Thank you for that, Heidi. She's our behind-the-scenes girl who makes sure that everything is working smoothly within her power. So I see that you have my alien friend on there, Fred.
Yes, I put this one up specifically for you.
Yes.
So people could see you and your alien friend, and I don't know, maybe it's a precursor to, you know, the down the rabbit hole question. Then again, maybe it's not. One never knows.
Okay. Well, I have to give credit where credit is due, right? So I found that little alien guy at a ballpark up in Wisconsin, and this little 8-year-old kid had it, and he thought I wanted to steal it. And I said, I don't really want to steal it. I just want a picture with it. So he was nice enough to let me get a picture. But anyway, today's word on the streets is that it's not brand new. So I won't say it's the new word on the street, but it's certainly the word on the street, and something that all of our listeners who are looking to buy a franchise should know about. And that is the FBR Franchise Business Review's Top 200 Franchise List of 2021. And we were going through that starting last week. I started looking at it, and boy, once you get on their site, I have to say it's really hard to get off, because there's so much great information. Whether you want to know about low-cost franchises, if you want to know about the best franchises for women, for veterans, there's just so much information. But the things I want to talk about for Word on the Street today was that there's a couple of them on that top 200 list that we've had on the show. So, for example, and one that Jerry and David are very close to their hearts and wallets right now, is The Joint. The Joint made the top 200 of 2021 list. And so I think that's awesome.
Which joint?
The back.
Oh.
The adjustment one.
Well,
you could call them both.
I'm in California, and they do adjustments either way.
Yeah, exactly.
This is the here, as I say, it's the no insurance, no membership, flexibility around the country. Right? You could say it could either be one or the other, but this is the one for chiropractic care. And it's really awesome. They're growing at leaps and bounds, and they, of course, made the list. So I like to give a shout out, especially since two of our experts here have invested in that brand over the last 6 months. So I think, right on, guys, you clearly made a great choice in that. Not that you didn't know that already. Also, Sandler Training We've had them on the show before. Action Coach was on the show. Huntington Learning was on the show. And then one of Ray and I, sister companies that I've talked to many times, but we haven't had them quite on the show yet, is Mr. Handyman. They'll be joining us here in a few weeks. And so very interesting to look at this list and find people that we know, that we've talked to, that we've kind of learned more and more about their business. So definitely brands I would watch. And again, if you're in the situation where you're curious about looking for franchises, definitely check out, again, it's the Franchise Business Review 2021 top 200 list of franchises. So that's my word on the street, Fred.
Elizabeth, anything for you?
Well, I was just going to say, it's kind of fun to, like she said, you can get lost in that website, but when you're looking at the market research they do and the criteria and the metrics that they measure, you get more and more in down the rabbit hole, as Fred likes to say, looking through all of that information, because it is I can't wait to hear their interview, because they're going to talk about all of the things that go into that and why it matters, why their metrics matter and what they indicate. So it's a really fascinating system that they've got going, and it benefits, both potential franchisees and franchisors as a sort of self-reflection tool. So I think it's going to be a great show.
Awesome. And with that, I think we should probably get started with our pillars of weather, right, Fred?
Take it away.
Okay, then. So today, joining us, we have Courtney Stillings and Emily George from Franchise Business Review. Welcome, ladies.
Hi, thank you.
And before we get too in-depth into who you are and what you do and all those other crazy questions, we have to go around the horn and find out where you're from and what's the weather like. So I'll let Ray show you how it's done, and then we'll go on down the line. So Ray, where are you? What's the weather like?
I am sitting at home. I know the background doesn't look like it, but I am sitting in Aurora, Illinois. Right now the temperature is 90. And the humidity is probably 99.9%, because as soon as you walk outside, even though it's only 90, you end up just like you walked out of the shower.
Yeah.
So it's terrible outside as far as I'm concerned. And I know Kristen is in a similar location, although she's going to say, oh, it's just fine.
Well, I will say, so I do love the heat. I love the sun. I love the summer. But I was at a baseball game earlier today, and it poured rain. And it was so nice at that moment because the wind kicked up and it was nice and cool. And then all of a sudden, the humidity kicked in again. It was like this big, hot, wet blanket. So those are my least favorite of the summer days, but I'll still take it over the snow anytime. So Courtney, how about you? Where are you?
So I'm in, I would say, the beautiful seacoast area of New Hampshire right now, in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. But we were just in a tornado warning about a couple hours ago. So it's been downpouring all day. Unfortunately, we're stuck at that 72 mark and downpouring. But I think my grass is loving it after last year's dry summer. So we got green grass over here. I'm not going to complain about some raindrops. And plus we live on the seacoast, so we're used to that.
That's awesome. And who could complain about being on the coast?
Right. You got it.
Emily, where are you?
So I am in lovely, lively Columbus, Ohio, where it is 84 degrees and finally a little bit of sunshine today after a very rainy week so far, which my gardens love and I love, so that I don't have to water those gardens, but I'm happy to see a little sunshine today.
Awesome. Well, I'll tell you, when I was out in California with my son, we must have got a lot of rain here in Chicago because I came back and it was like the plants all took on a life of themselves. Like that Venus flytrap plant that was in one of those old scary movies, right? It's like crawling up my fence and over the windows, and really, like, I don't even know what to do with them now. They're out of control. So I totally get the rain. So, and I do wish that we could send some of this rain out to the West Coast, because those poor people out there, Fred, as you are aware, are burning up. The grass is yellow and dry, and it's like anything could start a fire at any second. So
what else is new? This is California. We don't get rain. We don't get snow. We don't get hurricanes. We just get wildfires and earthquakes. It's just part of living out here, and crazy people.
I I know. One day you're going to fall off into the ocean.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's when Arizona becomes oceanfront property, right? Buy your property now. It's coming. All right, so let's get into our interviews today with the lovely ladies of Franchise Business Review. I'll first introduce you a little bit about Courtney I have here. So Courtney, you're doing new business development, I understand.
Yes.
And you do some ongoing client relations, account management. It says here that you are super passionate about making sure that businesses can succeed and working on creative ways to help your franchisors exceed their goals. Tell me a little bit about that.
Sure. Yeah. So I love small to mid-sized businesses. I have for a very long time. I come from a hospitality background. So I worked my way in many kitchens and crazy hours. And I kind of fell in love with the small to mid-sized businesses and how pretty much anyone does anything at any time. There's all hands on deck. And so using that with Franchise Business Review as well is just seeing what's out there to help them. And data talks a lot, and that's where my passion is. And so I definitely love driving new business for Franchise Business Review. I love going out and finding new brands that may need us, whether they're smaller or larger, and making sure that we can help them with succeeding in the long run and helping their franchisees as well.
Awesome. And I love that you have a golden retriever. I love dogs. That's my soft spot.
Yes.
The sports team, I'm not so sure about New England sports teams, but we can just move right past that.
We can stick with the golden retriever because he's
Yes.
he's staring at me right now through my glass door in my office. So if you see me looking over there, it's because he's giving me those sad golden retriever eyes.
Oh, poor Tuckerman. I'm sorry to hear about that. And Emily, so you're not too far. You're close over in David's neighborhood, right? And you're a senior consultant with Franchise Business Review. I show here that you have the new business development, ongoing client relationships. So you're more working collaboratively with the franchise brands and strategic opportunities in helping them get feedback from their franchisees to make them better franchisors, right? Is that a pretty good summation of it?
Yeah, 100%. Courtney and I do a lot of the same work, and it all comes down to gathering that feedback from franchisees, delivering it back to those franchisors, and then helping them action that feedback in ways that can be really meaningful to the brand.
That's awesome. And I see, so what's interesting is both of you come out of the hospitality industry.
You do. Yeah.
I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, I'll say hospitality hires are the best hires. Doesn't matter what you're doing.
I believe that because you get the best and the worst of people, right?
100%.
Yep, absolutely. Well, good. So let's get into talking about Franchise Business Review. I have to tell you that it's one of my favorite publications as it pertains to just kind of looking over franchises. And one of the things I think I like best is the way you get your information. Would you like to tell us a little bit about how you get the information for these reviews?
Sure. Yeah, I'll take that question. So for the last 16 years, Franchise Business Review, we've helped over 1,100 different franchise brands. So it's in every industry, and it all starts with a franchisee satisfaction survey. And it's a survey that we use with benchmarking questions. So when we survey the franchisees of a brand, they're getting the same questions across the board so that we can use that data and give it back to the franchisor to privately benchmark that in real time. So they can see how they stack up against others in the industry and then all the other brands that we survey. And so with that, we can also encourage brands to put in any custom questions to take a look at, but we really hone in on that franchisee satisfaction and drawing out what are the positives and what are the opportunities for the franchise brand to develop more and push development and also work on operations.
I think that's awesome. And Ray, you and I just went through one a couple years ago. I don't think we had one. This was probably for the 2021 publication, I'm thinking, but we had one not too long ago. You want to talk a little bit about your experience in completing it as a franchisee, what that's like?
Well, I'm pretty sure that when I was looking at different franchises, I did look at the franchise review because you want to certainly pick out something that's not on the bottom or just beginning. So it definitely it makes a difference to see that the franchise you're looking at is, up there. But unfortunately, sometimes how should I say, we recently had a bad review with our franchise, but and it's because of certain circumstances that were involved. And I think Kristen might, I don't want to step over my words too much here, but maybe you want to elaborate.
You want me to dress it up?
Dress it up.
Sometimes what you find in franchise systems, I think what Ray is trying to say is that when you go through a change of leadership, oftentimes changes in leadership really can upset the tea cart, so to speak, or the apple cart, right? And so you have, this group of people who've been under kind of one direction and understanding where we're going, what we're doing, what the mission is. And then a change in leadership tends to sometimes, in the situation Ray's talking about, left a lot of uncertainty. And I think that that's probably, so for me, Emily, it sounds like your job is almost kind of in lockstep with those transitions. Do you help franchisors through transitions like this in leadership or in acquisitions? Can you tell me a little bit about what you do in those cases?
Absolutely. So we can certainly help brands who are going through any number of different changes. And you're so right. Changes in leadership, changes in organizational structure, any number of things can have a big impact on the system because people signed up for one thing. And when that changes, that's not the thing that they signed up for.
Yeah.
And what we can do with the surveying is gather feedback in a confidential way from those franchisees. And as Courtney was saying, we're always going to ask the same 33 questions as a baseline. So we're going to get that benchmark data, but then we can incorporate these custom questions that can poke specifically at some of these specific situations, like a change in leadership, and really draw out that feedback. And one of the great things with our survey tool, folks can answer the survey anonymously if they want to. So
which we all appreciate.
Right. You can feel, if you want to go anonymous, you can feel really good about a third party gathering anonymous data, but you can also put your name on it. Mm-hmm. And so if you want to open up that conversation, even if it's a tough conversation, you can do that with our survey tool. And franchisees often take that opportunity to kind of offer some tough but constructive feedback on these surveys.
Yeah, and I'm sure you see some that's not so constructive at times, but I want to, I totally get that, but I want to remind our listeners that if anybody's out there who has a question for these ladies or wants to talk about, your situation in a franchise environment, you can give us a call at 323-580-5755. These are always really great discussions to have, especially when you have so many different brands going through so much fluctuation. I think you also see that I'm having to guess with brands that either go through rapid growth or maybe stagnant growth. Do you hear some of that from the franchisees as well?
Yes. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go for it.
Yeah, so we do. And a lot of the times that's when, they come to us and they say, we need to push development. And because we do offer lead generation as one of our offerings with Franchise Business Review, but it's only open to our award winners. So it's a benefit for our award winners to be placed on that list that they can take advantage of our lead generation. And so yeah.
Does that mean that if I'm on your list and I see somebody that I'm like, oh, I'm really interested in them, let's say it's, it's The Joint, and I click on The Joint, does that go right to the Joint's development team then?
Yes. Yep. So we set it up so they have their own page, so they can put on the information that they want, maybe the only states that they want to have inquiries from, and a video, fun pictures. That page is theirs. And then at the bottom, there's a form for a candidate to come in and fill out, and it will go directly to the executive team over at The Joint or whoever is collecting their leads. So it goes straight to them.
Awesome. So one piece of data that I was reading on your site was that currently 29% of franchises are solely woman owned. And the other stat that you put on there I found really interesting, and this kind of goes along the lines of the she session, as they are kindly referring to it, as all the women leaving the workforce, or corporate America, if you will, is that in the last 24 months, 32% of the franchises opened were woman owned.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's
So yay,
amazing.
girls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're
And we
getting
hope
there.
that trend continues.
Yeah. So do you kind of see that in some of the lead generation that you guys are doing as well? Do you have are you privy to that data to see like the demographics of those applicants, so to speak, coming in, or those interested parties?
Yes and no. So people still call us if they're interested as well. So they'll pick up the phone and call us at, Franchise Business Review, and they're like, I saw the Joint listed as a top award winner. Can you tell me a little bit about them? And a lot of times, more times than not, now we're picking up the phone, it's a woman, and it's awesome. I love it. And, coming from a male dominated force sometimes with the hospitality world, and now coming here, in franchising, it's just a breath of fresh air to get that. So it's nice.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And what do you think in your surveys, is there one or two questions that you feel are the most telling about a franchise system? I know that's a tough one because you do have 33 really good questions.
We do. So I'll give you mine, and maybe Em has one too. But the one question that we ask about training and support, and having the franchisees rank the training and support from the leadership team, is everything, I think, from me, because that's something that never goes away. It is
Right.
when you're first onboarding, it is when you've been in the system for 20 plus years. So that it's just a great feeling when you can look at that data from the side that we're on and share it with the franchise brand and be like, this is a great thing, or it's an opportunity for you to get better. No answer is wrong. It's just, but yes, I could talk about it forever. So training and support for me is a great thing to look at.
I think that's really great too. Matter of fact, that's one of our pillars that we talk about a lot, is making sure that you have that support from a franchisor after you buy, because anybody can sell something, right? But it's all about how you make your people successful from the training and support beyond that point. How about you, Emily? What do you think is one of your best or most telling questions?
Yeah, one of the questions I love that we ask is around communication, how the franchisor communicates with the franchisee. And then we also ask a question about how franchisees are involved in decision-making for the brands. And so kind of that two-way communication question is huge for me. And it tells a lot about how brands are set up, how open their ears really are, and how actively they're sharing really critical information with their system. I think those are things you've got to consider if you're getting in bed with a franchise brand.
Awesome. It's funny you use that term because I do too. And then I go, I wonder what people think about that.
Right?
I love it.
I'll throw it out
A
there.
little racy. Okay, so we're going to take a really quick break, but when we come back, I want to talk to you ladies a little bit about what you think is maybe the next up and coming franchise, I'll call it not platform, but category. What do you think the next one up and coming is for people to take a look at? Okay, Fred, I'm sorry, I jumped the gun on you there, but are you queued up?
I'm queued up.
All right. You're a little
Hey,
behind.
franchise owners, how's your local marketing? Do you feel like you could use some help keeping up with your social media posts and comments and reviews? Do you wonder if you could be doing more to attract local customers? Are you able to identify new move-ins to your local area? At Westvine, we help franchisees like you reach more local customers through digital marketing. With daily monitoring, creative content, and ad placement, and customer data intelligence, we'll get your business in front of the people who want your products or services. We also work with franchisors who need an agency to handle the digital marketing for all of their locations. If you're ready to reach more local customers, give us a call at 805-265-5440 or visit us at westvine.com. That's 805-265-5440 or westvine with a Y.com.
and welcome back to Pillars of Franchising. Today we are joined by Emily and Courtney from Franchise Business Review, and we were just reviewing some great questions that they ask of the franchisees, an anonymous survey that they take every year for franchisors to improve their brand. So thank you again, ladies, for joining us. The next question I guess I'd like to talk about is, as we mentioned, the up and coming industries. What do you think those next up and coming industries are going to be in the franchise world?
I just hit my elbow. I'm sorry. It's shaking the whole house. It's not an earthquake. I promise. I promise. We were just
not in New Hampshire.
Tornadoes, earthquakes. What do you got going on?
Here we go. So I'm going to say an industry that isn't an industry, and I'm up and coming, but it's also already here. And I'm going to do a small ping to Clean Juice, who actually just won a couple of our awards. But the healthy sector of food and beverage right now is so hot. And I think a lot of people realize that in COVID as well, because everyone was going there and wanting to get into the health and fitness world. And this was a great way to do it. So I've been having great talks with a lot of different franchise brands out there that are they're speeding up. They have great development. They have great pipelines, great closure rates on those leads. So I think that's one to look out for sure.
Awesome. That's great to know. I think we've got them on the list here somewhere. I know we've got a request to have them on the show. So that's awesome. I can't wait to tell them that you threw their name out there.
Yes.
How about you, Emily? Do you have one that's kind of your favorite that you see to be up and coming?
Yeah, so I'm going to actually kind of toss out two sectors that I think are going to be really interesting and kind of have been interesting, will continue to be. So pets, anything related to pets.
Us
and
dog
I think,
people.
Like everybody loves their pets. So I think there's a big need for this service. And what I've experienced from working with a few different pet brands in the franchising space, there are some really interesting franchisees who are taking a look at that sector. These are, former executives who have been, ousted from their positions in the last couple of years. And they're taking this opportunity to really think differently about what they want to do for the rest of their lives. And, pets are fun and they tend to be fun brands to run. So I think pets are going to be really big. And I also think there's going to be a lot in senior care. And I'm thinking specifically different types of senior care that maybe aren't the traditional nursing homes or residence facility. There have been some fascinating things with elder care, at-home care. And I think that's going to be a really big space and super interesting to see how franchises are going to develop around that.
That's awesome. Yeah, I really thought about that when we were getting into our brand too, because, even in our brand, it's the boomers and my kids keep teasing me that I'm a boomer, but I'm not. I have to say for the record, I missed the cutoff.
I'm not a millennial.
Yeah, I'm a Gen Xer. Okay. It's not my turn yet, but we talked about, the importance of having services and things ready for that generation as they go through, their next phase in life so that you can provide support to them. And I think with such a huge number of people in that particular category, it's really important to do services like that. So thank you. I think that's really interesting. Ray, did you have a couple of things you wanted to talk about? Because otherwise I could go on for hours.
Yes, I just wanted to bring up one point though. It's important as part of your research when you're looking for a franchise to look at the reviews, but it's only part of it. And you can't necessarily, make that the main point of your decision, because there's so many things to take into consideration. And, especially, a lot of the franchises that are up on high on the review, they're for a good reason. But they also may cost a little bit more because they've been in business a while and they know what they're doing. And so if you want something maybe more in the beginning of the franchising, then you may not find them up on review.
Sure.
But, my point is, though, you need to really make, how should I say, not make, but take everything into consideration. And then when you're getting close to making your decision, take all those things and combine them and do what your gut says, essentially.
Absolutely. And I did want to give a shout out also because we've had another one that Emily, you brought up in the senior care. They have been on the show too. Carolyn Thurston with Wisdom Senior Care. You know her, I take it.
Carolyn and Charles, gosh, they're wonderful folks.
Yeah. So they started Wisdom Senior Care. Gosh, I think they went into franchising maybe a year ago, really close to that mark.
No,
I think
it's been a
they've
couple of
franchising
years.
Maybe for the last 3 years.
3 years? Okay, so
or
I'm behind the scene on
and
that.
have
but-
really ramped up. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Ac-
they're all over the place. Go ahead,
Actually-
Fred, I hear you out there.
Yeah, that's me. Actually, they've been here in 4 or 5 years, but that's okay. And with
Wow.
with respect to the boomer thing, I'm not a boomer. I'm not a Gen X. I'm a PETA. I just want to get that out.
Yes.
You all know what that
are
means.
that for sure.
Definitely.
It doesn't matter which generation you're a part of. That is you.
I'm still a
But
PETA.
yeah, and I
know.
apologize for having their length of time in business incorrect. But I haven't met them until much more recently. But it's very exciting to see these categories growing, and I love it when we've talked to people, we've met them, we've gotten to know who they are, what they're about. So I think that's really important. And one of the final questions I have for you has kind of to do with that. If you could choose, each one of you, because I know that you are exposed to all of these different types of companies, do you suppose you would want a franchise that is more family oriented or more of a corporate type culture?
So
Why?
coming from the hospitality world, I'm going to ping them again. It's very family oriented, and I don't think I ever grew out of that. And that's what it's like being at Franchise Business Review as well, because we are a smaller team. So I'm going to have to say I love culture and I love that small family fit. And I'm done with corporate America.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Oh,
about you,
dear
Emily?
God. She mentioned the culture word. That means Ray's going to open his mouth.
Tell me what you think, Emily. I mean, you see all of it too.
Yeah, I'd be really torn on that one. I tend to be a little bit of an early adopter. So there's something about an emerging brand that's really, still very grassroots and very family focused. I think about a conversation I just had recently with Chris Ramo of Happy Cat Franchising, who dang near got me on a Happy Cat franchise.
Oh,
Because
wow.
I just want to own a cat hotel, and it's like
Cat
him, and he's
hotel.
so passionate about his business, and that would be so amazing.
Yeah.
But then the other side of me, I'm a rule follower. My dad would tell you that I am his moral absolutist, and I'm black and white, and I follow rules really well. So there's something about a really established system that could speak to me too. So I could go either direction on that one.
Interesting. And now that you say that, I'm looking at the picture on your wall, and it does appear that you have a cat picture on your wall.
You have a cat picture on the wall.
It's a good thing I didn't say something about the crazy cat people, because being a dog person, right, Courtney, you're either a cat or a dog person. It's pretty much
I
how it
know.
is for most people, not all, but and I appreciate that. Yeah, I think it's very interesting, and I do find, and I don't know how much you folks get to talk to the people buying the franchises themselves. I think we tend to find that it depends on someone's background as well, and their comfortability with running a business on perhaps whether they choose the family style brand or more of a corporate culture. What do you guys do you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And unfortunately, we don't get to speak to as many franchisees right now as we want to. Hopefully at multi-unit, when we go, we'll run into some and get to pick people's brains. But usually the most part, we get to talk to the franchise brands. But I agree with you on it, where I think it comes from their background, or it could be something totally different. They've been, corporate all along, and they don't want that anymore. So, yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, the one thing I can say for sure is that you guys do a great job at representing all the brands, all the different cultures. And if anybody's out there, you just want some reading to do, I think that if you start at franchisebusinessreview.com, you're going to find all kinds of information, including stuff that maybe you had no idea existed in franchising. And I'd like to ask both of you if you could just provide our listeners and our viewers with how to contact you. Obviously, your stuff will be on our website as well for references, but number, website, where's the best way to find you, ladies?
Sure. Definitely LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn all the time. My email is Courtney@franchisebusinessreview.com. So pretty easy. First name, FBR.com. Or my phone number directly. And that's 603-373-1551.
Awesome. And how about you, Miss Emily?
Yeah, so it's very similar. I really encourage people to follow me on LinkedIn, just to do like not, get my shoulder out of socket, but to pat myself on the back. I think I'm a pretty fun follow on LinkedIn. I have a really active Whiskey Wednesday.
Ooh, I gotta write that down.
So join us on LinkedIn, track me down there, Emily George on LinkedIn. By email, I am emily@franchisebusinessreview.com. And you're certainly welcome to call me at 603-501-1977.
Well, you ladies have been a lot of fun, and I wish I lived closer to the two of you because I think we could go out for Whiskey Wednesdays in person.
I mean,
That's right.
Chicago's not that far.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, as soon as we get our acts together and we start doing our own shows, we'll be sure that you guys get to attend. You can count on that. And I really appreciate both of you being on the air today. And we look forward to hearing more about the Franchise Business Review and all that you all have to offer. And I hope you have a great week. And again, we will make sure when we get our acts together and get some kind of show going, which is not too far down the road, that you will get personal invitations.
Thank you. We can't wait.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you so much for being on the show. You guys have a great day.
Thanks, you too.
Bye-bye.
Uh-oh, David.
I'm here. I am
There
here.
you are. Can you, David,
Yeah.
you're not, oh,
I'm
that's
cut
right.
off.
Uh-oh, what
I'm
happened?
floating around.
Wow, David, you've changed.
Yeah, I'm floating around.
Got COVID.
Oh, those ladies were great, weren't they?
Yes, they were. I feel as though I'm being set up though, because as they were talking, I've got a list of things here. All right. So Courtney and Emily, here's what they went over. Golden Retriever, my
Yeah.
favorite dog that I had for a long time. Love Golden
Mhm.
Retrievers. Columbus, lived there for 4 years. Met my wife in Columbus. And my daughter lives in Columbus. They talked about The Joint as one of the top franchises. Deeply invested in. Courtney comes from the hospitality background. I've only been there for 28 years.
Right.
And then they
right.
brought up Clean Juice, which is one of my favorite places to go to when we're down in Florida. So I feel as if I've been kind of set up with all those. They hit a lot of hot buttons for me. That was
Well,
pretty cool.
it's funny because everybody else couldn't see you, but I could see you on camera.
I was like, yeah, it's 2 thumbs up. That's it.
Yeah,
Keep going.
yeah.
That's
And
right.
I really, I don't know. I mean, I really enjoyed not only doing those surveys for them because I did feel really comfortable in that it was anonymous, right? And it did make me feel like I actually had a voice with my franchisor. And I love to see when the reports come out, was I kind of a rogue in my opinion, or were we all on the same page, and then to look at your competition and to look at maybe some other industries or something that I might want to invest in. It's a lot of fun to see that information. So.
Yeah, I mean, anytime doing self-checks, personal performance reviews, those types of reviews, I mean, sometimes it's hard medicine to swallow, but
Yeah.
hopefully use it to get better, right? I mean, that's the whole idea.
Yep, absolutely. So what have you got for us today? You always have great stuff for us.
So yeah, I was thinking about this, and I think stop the monkey business or something along those lines. I think I titled it, and it's really something that I was thinking about some things that crushed me when I was a young executive with my corporate job, and really when I was a new franchisee, and I guess a young franchisee, and it's really centers around this thing is a lot of people listening are either leaving their corporate jobs, right? Potentially becoming a franchisee, or maybe are a franchisee. And most likely, if they're leaving, they might have been in a position of management or leadership. And one of the things I always think about is why do some managers and bosses and owners of franchise, we never have enough time. We're always running out of time. We don't have enough time to do everything, right?
Yep.
But the workers, the employees, they've got all the free time in the world. They're doing whatever they want
Yeah.
to do. And I really think it comes down to, I know it comes down to this mentality of, and a lot of us are guilty of it, especially when we start out in business. And just a caution, if you're brand new doing this, and maybe you're doing this as a boss, is that mentality of, if you want something done right, you got to do it yourself, right?
Oh, so true. So true.
Yeah, and it's that, well, I'm indispensable. It's the mindset. I'm indispensable. Everybody needs me, right? And what that really does, though, it impedes the work of everybody that you're leading. I mean, it impedes the work of the employees. It creates bottlenecks because everybody's relying on you.
Yeah.
So the reason I came up with that is really goes back to a book Ken Blanchard wrote over 30 years ago, right? And the reason it creates bottlenecks is think of this scenario. I mean, I know this has happened to me, oh my gosh, thousands of times, and I wish I would have just applied the principle better, that the same principle I'm going to talk about better. But you're in your office, you're in the hallway, it doesn't matter, and somebody comes up to you and says, "Hey, Kristen, I got a problem." Right? So up until that exact point, that was their problem.
Right.
As soon as you start having a conversation, it now becomes both of your problem.
Absolutely.
Right? So
Welcome to the party.
Yeah, if it's a monkey, that monkey came on that person's back, and now all of a sudden it has a leg on your back and it has a leg on the person's back. And then what we do as managers, as owners, as bosses, we make the fatal mistake. And we make a comment, something along lines of, "Let me think it over and I'll get back to you." And all of a sudden, what happened? That monkey now has both of its legs on your back, and the employee or the subordinate or whoever, they walk away. And here's the thing. Yeah, they wash their hands of it. And here's the thing. When I said it was a fatal mistake, why is that fatal? Well, like I said, the monkey's now securely on your back. So what just happened to make it fatal? You've now become the employee and they've become the boss.
Yeah. And they're going to come to you and say, "Hey, Dave, how's that going there?"
Bingo.
Did
They're
you get
going
an answer from me?
There you go. They're going to check up on you. "Hey, how's it going? What should I tell the team? Do you have an answer? Have you come up with a solution yet?" Whoa, that just switched because of that fatal mistake. So
Right.
it always cracks me up that I used to have this with my managers. I'm so busy. And they're busy doing stuff they shouldn't be doing. But then what happens, they get overwhelmed, right? They get overwhelmed. And so the consequences of that, I mean, it can be, believe me, there's going to be times when your employee's going to come to you, Kristen, and you and only you should handle and fix it, right? I mean, that's going to happen. But too many times we get overwhelmed. We take on all the problems. And what happens is that the productivity drops. We become the bottleneck.
Yep.
And as an early young franchisee, I was guilty of this more times than I can remember, because I mean, we're new, right? So everybody was new. So everything that came up, I'm like, okay, I got to fix this. Whether it's marketing, whether it's a delivery issue, whatever the case may be, I'll handle. I'll get back. Well, what I was noticing was I couldn't get to everything. Right. So marketing campaigns weren't getting launched. Different promotions weren't getting launched because I said, "I'll do it."
Right.
So then we go to the manager meeting. "Hey, Dave, where are we at on this thing?" And and I'm sitting there going, "Man, did the roles reverse?" And it's just simple of just saying, "Let me think about it. Let me get back to you." So if you're struggling with that, chances are that's what you're doing, and you're doing it unconsciously. I certainly did. And we're doing it to be helpful.
Right.
We think we are, but we're really causing a lot of problems. So the solution is really learning how to really master and truly learn effective coaching. And, that's a topic for a future podcast. Sure. But I was thinking about this as more and more people are leaving their corporate jobs. They've probably experienced that overwhelm in their office. Well, it's not going to change when you're owning your own business if you don't change your approach to those, if that makes sense, right?
Absolutely.
So,
I go through that with my own office personnel all the time. And I did exactly that fatal mistake. And finally I said, oh my gosh, okay, well, next time they come to me with something, I said, that's a great question. What do you think we should do?
perfect, right? And
Because-
give them the monkey back. Go feed your own
Yeah,
monkey.
take that Velcro monkey. Take it
That's
on your way.
right.
But the
That's
nice
right.
thing is you're developing them to solve problems along the way, right?
Well, that's the other thing, and the people who don't figure that out are the ones that really truly feel I'm indispensable. This place
Yeah.
can't run without me, yada, yada, yada. And they just don't realize, I certainly didn't realize that you're holding back the whole organization, the office, the business, whatever the
Sure.
case may be. So, I mean, your approach is exactly the step in the right direction. It has to happen. You have to develop your people.
Right. And you have to know they're going to make mistakes, right? Because, I've
course.
had that a couple of times too, where I say, hey, listen, you're empowered, make a decision, anything under $100. If you think you need to do something like that, go ahead. These are kind of your guidelines, right? And of course they make decisions where I think, well, I wouldn't have quite done that. But instead of saying that's not what I would do, okay, well, explain to me why you thought that was the right decision. Okay, well, tell me some more about it, and try to seek to understand why they made, I may have given them $100, carte blanche, make the customer happy, and they, gave $200, right? Or free
Right.
clean. And I'm like, okay, help me understand the circumstances behind that decision. Because I think a lot of times we have people who you try to empower someone to make a decision and they make what you might consider the wrong decision, right?
Yep, absolutely. And I think you're right on. And the way to avoid that, truthfully, without going too deep into this, is just to set up some follow-up, right? Not that you're checking up on it, but some follow-up. And I would say the bigger the exposure to the business, to your job, to whatever, the more frequent you might want to follow up, or you might want to
Yep.
put some barriers or safeguards around it to say, hey, if to handle it the way you want, but if it gets to this point, check
That's
with
right.
me first, type of thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's great advice. Thank you very much.
That's
You have
awesome.
anything else for us this week?
No,
Now I'm going to be dreaming of
we're good.
monkeys.
That's right.
I'll be trying to take the monkeys off my back. Little
Well,
Velcro monkeys.
Yeah, and the thing is that metaphor that he used in that book, I mean, it's stuck with me all these years because of that. I mean, it's you literally you got a monkey on your back. So
Yeah.
it works. Yeah, it
That's
worked well.
awesome. That's awesome. Well,
Ken
again,
Blanchard.
thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. You've got some great, we're going to have to put on the blog somewhere all the books that you talk about, because you've got a great library of resources. So excellent. Thank you very much, David. We'll look forward to see what you have for us next week.
You got it.
Elizabeth, I understand you have something for us. But you're on mute like me.
Did that to me. Fred must have muted me.
Yeah, he does that to people,
Control freak right now.
He
Um,
is.
Yeah. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody is following us on our social media. We have recently launched our new LinkedIn page for Pillars of Franchising.
Woohoo.
We also have Facebook and Twitter and all the platforms. Because we're going to be launching a lot of things up in the next couple of months. We've announced the magazine coming up in October. So if you are interested in advertising, we've got quite a nice list and viewership and subscribership already from our shows and our long history of production. So this is going to be a good place for people who are looking to get the word out, franchisors who are looking for franchisees. So keep that in mind, and you can reach out to me to find out what our situation is with that and how you can get your brand more visibility.
Elizabeth, this would also be for franchise partners, right? People who are
absolutely. If you're a supplier or a vendor,
Yep.
great place to get yourself in front of franchisors and the franchisees running the individual locations.
Awesome.
So definitely for the vendors and the suppliers. So that's exciting news. And then we're going to have a lot more activity coming on the blog as we get the magazine and a lot more written content coming out. So stay tuned for that and make sure that you get on all of our mailing lists. And then I had one more thing in my head and it just fled.
It's probably my fault.
It probably, I will take it, if you want to take the blame, I will allow it. But at any rate, you can reach out to me at Elizabeth at thepillarsofranchising.com. Oh, it came back. If you have a good story, I'm going to print the editorial calendar out on our website and put it in different places so you can find it. If you have a story you want to tell, we're always looking for great content. So keep an eye out for those things, and you can reach out to me as well if you think you would be a great interview for the magazine.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I can't wait to see our blog. And we do have to we really should publish a list of everyone's favorite books. David always mentions these books.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And
we'll have a resource library.
Yeah. I always go, now what book did he talk about this week? And then I can never find it. I always forget.
Yeah.
And I don't want to text
the library.
Yeah. I don't want to text him at midnight while I'm supposed to be asleep. And certainly he is. And I'm trying to find that book he talked about last week. So that'd be a great idea. Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Kristen, you've changed.
Oh my God, Becky. Look at that monkey.
That's hilarious. Hey, Kristen, I had to check and make sure I wasn't on mute because everybody's had trouble with mute today. So I want to get a head start.
Yeah, I'm glad you did. It's nice to see you, Jerry.
Good to see you too. I wanted to say, David's feeling my pain now because he was complaining about following those ladies because they kind of set him up. And that's what I feel like every week is David sets me up. I'm like a straight man or something.
All of a sudden I see Pinocchio dancing. Oh my gosh, Fred, you should be writing all this down. Oh my goodness. So what have you got for us today? I know you've been super busy. Your world's on fire or your hair's on fire. I don't know.
Kristen, I live for the business world, and it's just been fun with the acquisitions we've been working on and some new business models we're working on and completing some things with the existing businesses we own and so on. So it's been great. But I thought with our transition, we recognize since we've done so many acquisitions and we've grown in different directions in the past that there are struggles that go along with that. And so I thought it might be kind of fun to do a bit of a series, if you will, on going from being a single franchise owner to being a multi-unit owner and some of the things that go along with that, because it'll get people thinking. Even if they haven't bought their first franchise, maybe they have aspirations of owning several, and that they can include that in their original business plan and so on. So I thought I'd start today to talk about, some of the things that, are different when you go from owning one location to owning multiple locations and things to kind of prepare for. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not just that you get more gray hair, right?
No, but that definitely is one of the sidelines to the thing. No, many people, when they get into franchising, they buy that first location and they're very hands-on.
Yep.
And they feel like they're a single owner, and this is all my kingdom, if you will, or whatever. And your employees, you become very close to your employees, and maybe they're like a part of your family or something. And so, but for you to go to the next step and start adding on more locations, there's going to be changes that will go on with you and the way you look at business and the way you handle business and things like that are just they're necessary. And
for sure,
it's very difficult to continue to grow if you don't go through that. So some of the things that I've made note of that I'd like people to think about, is the first thing you have to understand is financing, because just because you've got one successful one doesn't mean the bank's going to be standing in line to loan you money for the next one. So you have to make sure that before you get too excited about adding that next location, that you've got to add a great banking relationship, is the way that I would put it. Because
I'm sorry, Jerry.
No, I was going to say, because you're going to need money to buy it, to do the acquisition, but you'll have some cash flow issues, adding extra, head count to your stable of employees, as well as all the vendors and all those kinds of things. So there's things you just have to think about from a financing standpoint. What were you going to say, Kristen?
I was going to ask if you think that there is a certain kind of turning point when you realize that, you know, your first location was stable enough, you were kind of like you said, you're out of the weeds now, and you can be more of a visionary of where you want to go. Do you think that that's a certain timeline? I mean, even some of these franchisors who have you sign multi-unit deals right out of the gate, you know, they have to give you a timeline, right? You have to have time with your first franchise before you continue to develop.
Well, most franchisees, most franchisors, if you sign a multi-unit agreement, have a development process in there and a timeline so that you can open your first one, and maybe you've got a year or a year and a half before you have to open your second one. So you can kind of get your feet wet and discover what you don't know and those kinds of things. And, you know, if you were looking at buying a franchise and signing a multi-unit agreement, that's one of the triggers for me, would be to watch and see how long the development timeline is, so you can become comfortable before you get, you know, too crazy with your second or third location. So definitely. Now, if you already own your first one, I think it'll become obvious to you for maybe 2 or 3 different reasons why you may want to look at adding another one. For me, honestly, I got a little bored. It became way too easy running one of them. If you've got a great manager, they end up doing most of the work. And I am not somebody that just wants to take the money and run. I have to stay involved. So adding a couple more locations was something that I did as much for my well-being as for anything else. There is, from an overhead and a logistics standpoint, there's a lot of value in having multiple locations, because you've got to have somebody to do payroll and pay your bills, and vendors have different multipliers they use for the supplies that they sell you, depending on how much you use. So buying in quantity. So, I mean, there's a lot of really good financial reasons why I think it's a strong benefit for you to look at multiple units. One of the things, since we're so associated with our staff and they feel like they're such a part of our family, as we grew, we could buy health insurance at a much lower multiplier. So that allowed us to open it up for more of our staff to afford health insurance that maybe couldn't afford it before. And that goes along with virtually everything: health, eye, dental, 401ks, all of those things just become much easier as you add more. So that's something you need to think about, but certainly a benefit towards adding other things. I kind of touched on it. Number 2 for me is infrastructure. If you're going to add more locations, make sure you do have those trusted advisors that can help you with that and support you, like your attorney, your banker, your CPA or whatever, so that you know that you've got support for multiple units as opposed to one. But internally, if you're going, you know, you have to have some management in place that can handle more than one location, perhaps. Just being able that you're ready, willing, and able to take on more responsibility until you develop that second or third location is critical, because it will be a load for a while.
Well, and that's really interesting too. And I know, like, for when we expanded, right? So we've done 3 additional acquisitions in the last 15 years, but I remained in one office, because when I got that first office, it was very centrally located. And it just so happened that my acquisitions were next door neighbors, so to speak. So it continues to be centrally located. But when you talk about infrastructure, you know, we had to hire up, because now you've got way more volume that you're dealing with. You have to make sure that your computer systems can handle the volume. We had to upgrade all the phone systems so that those are now VoIP lines instead of just traditional phone services, and all kinds of different stuff that comes in. And, you know, as you grow, whether that be through, you know, a situation like I had, or like you're having, where you do new locations, there's a lot of cost involved.
There is a lot of cost, and so much of it is unexpected. I mean, you expect some cost, but you really can't define what that will be. Many people miss simple things like deposits on additional utility accounts. I mean, that can turn into a lot of money that you don't even think about when you're adding new locations or acquiring existing locations or whatever. You know, some other things that I've got listed on my list of things that I've gone through that I think people need to be aware of is, you know, remote managing. So when you own one location, you may be in that location every day, but when you own multiple locations, you've got to be able to manage by phone and internet, now via Zoom meetings or something like that. And not everybody is wired to do that kind of stuff, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
be prepared, understand that your management style and the needs of you as an overhead manager will change. You need to be aware of that. And to go along with that, you will have more corporate overhead that you have to understand is kind of a hidden cost. You're going to spend more time with your accountant and attorney.
Yes.
And you have to pay for those hours. You may have to add somebody else within your corporate office to handle, fill in the blank. It could be bill paying, payroll, could be some sort of an acquisition, somebody that acquires all your supplies and distributes them. Could be all kinds of different things, logistics people. Depending on the business you're in, you may have the need for those kinds of people, which adds corporate overhead. And
Yeah.
David brought up a good point. What is very difficult for people that own one location when they go to own multiple locations is being comfortable empowering your employees to make decisions, because many of the decisions they have to make should happen right now, not after they track you down and let you think about it and all that kind of stuff. It's got to be made right now. So you have to understand training. David talks about developing leaders. That is critical when you start adding multiple locations, because they need to act as if they're you when things come up.
Right.
So training, developing leaders, and empowering those leaders, even in spite of the mistakes they make, is pretty critical as you continue to grow. I mean, we're across 2 states right now with the Great Clips brand. We've got 36 locations. We've got a lot of overhead. We've got a lot of infrastructure we've had to build. We pay a lot to our trusted advisors. We have to have a great leadership training program and have confidence that the people we're training, when we empower them, will make the right decisions. And not everybody can let go of the reins. If you micromanage things, or if you worry too much about kind of small things in the big picture, you will struggle with that kind of thing. And then the last thing I've got on my list is cash flow. If you're in a business where there are slower months of the year, which almost every business has, the ebbs and flows. If you're in a business like that and you add multiple locations, your deepest spot just got deeper. So having enough cash flow to handle those months when business is a little slower, which everybody has, you've got to plan ahead for that when you're adding extra locations.
Yeah, I think that's actually a really, really good point, because you certainly don't want to get caught with a bunch of expenses when it's your slow season. Ray, I understand. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, actually, when we did our first acquisition, that was my wife's biggest stress point. Was we acquired them just before the slowest months of the year for our business. And she worried about payroll, being able to pay people, because we knew in those months we traditionally had to work on borrowed money to make that work. And so how do we handle that sine wave and come out the other end stronger than ever? So keep that in mind. The cash flow piece is a really big piece when you're adding new locations.
Yeah. And it's interesting because sometimes adding that location at the slowest period in other ways is the best time, because you have time for that training and development. You have time to get things set up so that when you do open, your employees are ready. I know we try to do that all the time too, and it gets really tricky. Ray, I understand you have something you want to talk about, cheese. What's up with the cheese? Oh, you're on mute. Jerry, he's supposed to talk about cheese, but he's on mute.
You want me to talk about cheese for you, Ray?
Yes, Swiss, cheddar. What? He's still moving his lips, but there's no noise. There he is.
All right. So I'm just dovetailing to what David said about, he mentioned the author, but he never mentioned the book. And that's Who Moved My Cheese. Isn't that correct, David? I know you're on mute.
Correct.
No, the 1 minute manager meets the monkey.
1 minute manager is another one.
Meets the monkey.
Yeah, the 1 minute manager meets the monkey. Yep. Blanchard wrote a series of books. They're all awesome.
Yeah, they are, and which means to our audience, read Blanchard. He's got a lot of good books out there. Who Moved My Cheese is one, and 1 Minute Manager is another. And 1 Minute Manager is a short read too, if I remember correctly.
It is. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's something that you can easily put in, read in one day.
I've actually incorporated many of Blanchard's books into our leadership training programs because they're short reads, as Ray said. They're spot on, and he writes in a storytelling motif, if you will.
Yeah.
And virtually every employee can get pieces out of that just because of the style that he uses. So I recommend Blanchard's books for all of our leadership training programs.
That's awesome. And I like that you have multi-units and have your own kind of leadership training, because with that many, not just employees, but leaders in every store you have, I mean, that's a lot of responsibility for developing people.
We love training leaders, Kristen. I would bow to David's leadership training skills, but we've trained hundreds of them over the last few years, and we've got a pretty solid system. So with that, awesome. I will close my part for this week and plan on talking to you more about multi-unit additions next week.
Is it still a good time to buy a franchise, Jerry?
There is never a bad time to buy a franchise. I just read something today. It was an article, and I wish I could quote where it came from, but they were interviewing Great Clips franchisees about coming through the pandemic, and they were raving about the great support they got, not only from corporate, but also from their fellow franchisees. And we hear those stories every day. So if you're going to go into business, buy a franchise. It's the right thing to do. You'll never regret it.
That's awesome. And hats off to Great Clips, to owners like you, and to your fearless leader, Rob Goggins, for making sure that you guys are doing a great job supporting all your franchisees out there. And I totally appreciate your time and effort once again that you give to us here on the show, and to all of our listeners and viewers, trying to just help everybody make good choices as we go through this whole process and come out of the pandemic, hopefully. Kind of a roller coaster, so to speak. But and until next week, we'd like to thank everybody for being with us today. I don't think I've missed anything. I hope not, because Oz will come and yell at me if I did. And,
of course I
again,
will.
Thank you to everybody. Oh, there he is.
All I'll say is, if you don't want to read the books, folks, just keep watching the show, because I'm quite sure all of you wonderful co-hosts will continue to comment and offer words of wisdom from these books until we all want to puke. With that, I'll say we'll be back next week with